Yo, what's good everybody? We're back, and today I'm going to be giving my personal opinions on Update 5.0, the Dragon Ball Z update, and what I liked and what I didn't like as much in this update. So if y'all doing this video and have any comments about my thoughts and opinions on this update, let me know down in the comments. I'm more than happy to take a look at all of them. And yeah, let me know what y'all thought about this update on a rating of 1 to 10, what y'all liked, what y'all didn't like as much, and yeah, all that. So without further ado, let's get into it. All right, so I'm probably gonna have some like Odyssey gameplay in the background, because I feel like Odyssey is one of those fun game modes in AV that you can just have in the background and should be good enough for background footage. But the first thing I want to talk about is my overall rating of this update before I even get into anything nitpicky. I would say this update is a solid 8 out of 10. I would still personally say that the Bleach update was my favorite, mainly because Bleach is one of my favorite updates of all time, and I feel like the content that we got in the Bleach was just overall more than this update for those two reasons. So yeah, that's just my overall rating. Y'all can have a higher or lower opinion of this update. In terms of rating, you could say it's a 7, you could say it's a 9, whatever you want. That's just my personal opinion of this update. Now, in terms of everything we got in this update, we got 2 new maps. We got obviously 2 Dragon Ball maps. We got one for story mode and then one for Legend Stage. First of all, I want to say both of the maps themselves are absolutely beautiful. Some auric glaze incoming. This dude goes absolutely stupid with every map he cooks. It's actually crazy. Like, I don't know how he does it, but enough of the glaze. In terms of the game itself, it's obviously a story mode, it's obviously Legend Stages, and then we obviously got Odyssey, a brand new game mode, not an actual like map, but a game mode. Now, in terms of the story mode and like the Legend Stages and in general, one thing that I really liked about the story mode and the Legend Stage in this update is that they really focus on trying to get newer players being able to do the newer updates, right? Now, what do I mean by that? So I'm going to talk about the units in a later segment, but in terms of Vegito itself, or Goku slash Vegeta and Vegito, you can call it 3 units. I'm gonna just call it Vegito in this video, and Buu as well, just Buu, not Buhan or whatever. Vegito's Evo is one of, if not the easiest secret evolutions in the game. It took me 5 minutes to get. The unit itself is just off banner. The hardest part with every unit, I guess you could say, is just getting the essence stones and getting the kills. The Evo material itself is so easy, and it's so early game friendly. Why? Because you could do the story on Act 1 story mode on normal, the easiest story you can do for Vegito's Evo at least, or even for Buu. You can do that and you could still have a chance of getting Vegito and Buu. Now, with Vegito, you have to do both the Legend Stage and the story mode. But with Vegito, all you have to do is just unlock the stages and then just press retry until the Retora earring comes in. You do that for both story and Legend Stage, you have the Vegito Evo right there. In terms of Buu, you just go into Act 1 of the story mode, the easiest you can do, and it would be the exact same as the Legend Stage, which is much harder. So the fact that they really thought about adding a way to get Vegito for both early game players and also late game players is, I feel like, something that I don't feel like a lot of people realize and really appreciate, is that AV, they really think about the early players and the late game players, because not everybody is going to be able to solo Act 3 of the Legend Stage. They take out all of your units' damage. They regen like crazy. Not a lot of people are going to be able to do that, but the fact that they added story mode and being able to obtain Buu and a part of Vegito really easily is, I feel like, something really good and something that goes very unnoticed that I feel like I should point out that I really like about the story mode and the Legend Stage. All right, so now Buu. I've already talked about how Vegito's Evo is, you do the first story and you do the story and then you do the Legend Stage, you restart until you get the earrings, you're done. For Buu, it's a 2% chance after you complete the stage and you get the portal at the base, and then you do the portal, then you get Buu. Now I'm in the process of getting Buu myself. I've done like 22 acts. It feels like forever, but yeah, it's definitely gonna be one long grind for sure. But getting Buu himself is actually not even that hard. Again, the fact that you can get Buu from Act 1 normal of the story mode is, I feel like, a really good addition. It just makes getting Buu much early game friendly as well as late game friendly, because if you aren't strong enough to do the Legend Stages, do the story mode. But if the story mode is too easy and you want something more, do Act 3 of the Legend Stage, because you're going to be able to get the familiars that are really good with Buu. So it's a win-win situation for early game players and late game players. So I feel like they really made Buu's obtainment method really nice, and I feel like that's something else I should talk about, that as I feel like going unnoticed, they really made this update late game and early game friendly, which I really like. Now, when we talk about Odyssey, that's a brand new game mode that's been talked about and, you know, definitely been hyped up a lot. I personally really like the design of Odyssey itself, the game mode. It feels like a really fun game mode. However, I want to say one thing. I played Odyssey like the first or second day it came out. I've heard they did a lot of changes to it. I don't know if they mean like nerf or buff or whatever. I haven't really thought about Odyssey that much. I've just been focused on the new Dragon Ball units, to be honest with you. So when I'm talking about Odyssey, just take it with a grain of salt when I'm being very nitpicky about it, because I can't really give a full-on opinion. But if I'm talking about the first first time that I played Odyssey and I actually played it, it felt like a really fun game mode. I was like enjoying it a lot. That was the game mode that I was playing, and I wasn't getting bored because it's always different. The numbers were getting higher and higher, you know, yada yada yada. It just felt like a really fun game mode, I'm not gonna lie to you. But in terms of the rewards you would get out of it for the amount of time you would spend, the thing is they added a skip wave button, which would take like 50 seconds per stage depending on how good your units are or how strong the enemy is, which is a really good addition. It would save us a lot of minutes, maybe even hours. That's a really nice addition. And in terms of the things that you would get out of it, the gems are not much, the gold is not much, the rerolls is not much. The biggest thing though is the corruption crystals, which is another thing that got added in this update. Now, corruption crystals, the only way of obtaining them is the Odyssey game mode. So if you all are really big sweats or really want to make your units as overpowered as possible, doing Odyssey is definitely very worth it. The game mode itself is really fun. The rewards in terms of the corruption crystals, as I feel like really worth, because I've seen someone do it in like 6 minutes or 7 minutes to get one corruption crystal, which I think is pretty good, I'm assuming. So yeah, the game mode itself is really good. I don't know if it deserves a buff in the rewards or a nerf in the rewards. I don't really know. Again, I haven't played Odyssey as much to give you more info about it than I've already given. So yeah, that's Odyssey. In terms of the game modes themselves, I feel like they did really good in terms of late game and early game players having enjoyment in it, and getting the units is definitely very chill compared to Sun Jin Woo. So I really like that a lot. So yeah, that's all I gotta say for the game modes. Now, the units themselves, I'm not gonna talk about the leaderboard units because I don't feel like anybody cares about them besides just having them in your inventory. The battle pass units are really good units. They're really sick. I haven't really seen or played Devil May Cry or Devil Man Cry. I still don't know. Is it May or Man? I don't know. The units themselves look really cool. The models look fire. The devil dragon forms that both of them have is absolute heat. It's so cool. In terms of like the DPS and like how much they do, or Virgil I've heard is like a broken DPS. Dante I've heard is a crazy crit unit. So take that how you will. For battle pass units, I feel like they're very worth because you can just get them for free while just playing the game. You don't have to really do anything with that besides playing the game. So yeah, really cool. Now to the Dragon Ball units, we got 4. I'm gonna say 4, but there's so much into the units that you could call it like 10 or more, but I'm calling it 4 because each one of them takes 1 spot in your inventory. So I'm just gonna call it 4, but there's obviously more to that. So first of all, Mr. Satan or Hercule with Fat Buu, he's a really good buff unit, buffing the damage and the crit, I'm pretty sure, which is a really nice buff. Because the crit definitely helps a lot. Obviously a little bit of damage helps a lot as well. Really cool unit. He doesn't have much to that besides just buffing other units, which I feel like is fine. You don't really need to go all out into Mr. Saiyan. There's not really all that anyways. Now when we talk about Gohan, he is one of the best early game units if you have Monarch. I think maybe the best, because with his first passive, which makes him that you can place him down basically without having to spend money. You would just bring like a rare that costs like 200 to place. You would place the rare down and then Gohan would place right beside him. So instead of spending 2,200 yen, which I think is how much you would need to place him, you could just bring like a cheap ass rare, place him down, and then Gohan would place right there as well, which makes him a really good broken early game unit, which makes him really viable for a lot of game modes. And if you don't have Monarch on him and if you don't want to use him for damage, you can just place him down, sell him, and you would get like 500 yen just like that, a free 500 yen, which would still help out a lot in terms of getting your farms placed down, getting your early game units placed down even faster. So Gohan is really good with or without Monarch in so many different cases depending on the game mode you're playing, that he really is like the overall best unit in this update, I would say, because you can use him for so many different things. And I feel like his final damage is not even that bad. I've mainly just been focused on his first passive because of how broken it is, that you can use him as like a support quote unquote for the money, or you could use him as a broken early game unit with Monarch. So yeah, go on, a really sick unit. Now the 2 big shots, Vegito and Buu. Now I've already talked about Vegito's Evo obtainment and all that. Now in terms of how sick he is, of how like he was built, I feel like Vegito's a really cool unit. He has Goku and Vegeta who swap all the time. They have their own buffs, they have their own status effects that they apply. They both have their own VFX and their AoEs. They're both really cool in their own ways. Vegito, of course, really sick unit. The design that they made for the shiny and the non-shiny, really fire. VFX, all that, clean. In terms of how good they are, Goku and Vegeta fit into the support slot. Vegito fits into the DPS slot. Now, the more I've used Vegito, of course, if y'all haven't seen the video, I did obtain Goku shiny Monarch. Watch that video if you haven't, you know. Gotta do a little plug, you know. But the more that I've used Vegito, the more that I feel like he's just not suitable for a lot of game modes besides the longer versions, which I feel like isn't that bad, because I don't feel like every unit should be good in every single game mode. Because if that's the case, what's the point? Like realistically, what's the point? You would just have 6 units at all times just in your slots. You would never have to change them because they're just good at everything. Like you would never need to change them. The new dev team adding different units for different situations, I feel like will come in very handy for future game modes. For example, Uryu right now or Ragna, they were kind of falling off, right? But with the new Odyssey game mode, all the potential that they had has just shot back up, making them really good for that game mode and one of the best units for that game mode. So I feel like, yes, the more that I use Vegito, the more that I feel like he's not as good as I wanted him to be or I thought he would be. I feel like he will shine a lot in the future with coming game modes, and I feel like that's all I'm gonna say about Vegito. Again, he's a really good support, really good DPS. If you have Monarch on him, I don't feel like you can complain because it's a good Monarch, at least at the end of the day. And yeah, when we talk about Buu, he seems like the better overall DPS unit compared to Vegito, since he has summons that do 70% of the damage stat. But I feel like with Buu, you need Monarch, and if you don't, I feel like he's not as good as he would. Of course, he wouldn't be as good as he is with Monarch, but I feel like it would just be more useful bringing other units compared to Buu if you don't have Monarch on him. That's what I personally think. That's what I've seen out of the showcases. That's my personal opinion on it. But even besides that, he's a really good buff unit for Dragon Ball units. He also buffs the damage and crit chance, I'm pretty sure. Correct me if I'm wrong. So he's also a really good support unit. He's also a really good boss killer once you get the Kid Buu form. So overall, really sick unit, both of them. They both have their uses. Obviously, they're both not better than the Vanguards because, of course, I love this idea of the Vanguards being the top units, the hardest to get, and of course the best to get. And I feel like these two are still really good units, but they are very situational because of how long they take to, of course, max out and upgrade and all that, but also because of how much you need to work on them to get them. Like with Buu, you have to get the candy stacks. With Vegito, you have to get the swaps, etc., etc., right? So overall, I feel like the units are really sick, and yeah, that's all I gotta say about that. Now, in terms of the new additions, they did a whole rework on challenges that I absolutely love. I never thought that they could get more free to play than this. They have added a new weekly challenge that gives you 20 rerolls, a shitload of essences, so much stat chips once a week. It doesn't get affected by 2x weekend, which is, I feel like, good because that would be just too broken. But it's just such a nice addition to get 20 free rerolls, and it's honestly not even that hard. I've done it. I can honestly solo with Monarch Yuhaba. To be fair, it isn't Monarch, but like they came out with like 4,000 HP. They do, the boss spawns with like 1 million, but like I don't know. I feel like it isn't that bad for 20 rerolls, and a lot of other stuff within it is really good. They buffed the daily challenge to get 3 rerolls instead of 2. They also buffed that you can get more stat chips, more essence stones from it as well. And then they also made it so that challenges aren't random every half an hour. They do reset every half an hour, but it's the exact same set challenges every single half an hour. So you will always have a stat chip challenge, always essence stones, always rerolls every single hour. You won't have to pray to the gods for there to be an essence stone challenge if you're grinding for a unit. It's always there. You just have to wait every 30 minutes for it to reset. So that's such a nice addition because it just makes getting rerolls and just getting materials just so much nicer and just so much more less tedious. And challenges, I feel like, is probably the best thing that they did in this update, in my opinion. I feel like the challenge additions and the rework was so nice for free to play players because you can get so much more rerolls out of it. I think someone said that you can get around 600 rerolls a week. But to be fair, that's like if you no life, sweat the game, no shower, no sleep, 24 hours, your ass is on the seat playing the game. Still, that is kind of ridiculous. You're probably getting like around like 300 if you want to be a little bit more realistic, but still ridiculous. It's actually crazy. Being able to get 20 rerolls a week, more rerolls from the daily challenge, and just being able to just always do rerolls or always do essence stone challenges every single half an hour, I feel like is a really sick addition. So I'm not gonna yap about it too much. I feel like that's the main thing that they added. They obviously added a new UI for the top bars. They added a new corruption system, which basically gives your familiars traits, which is pretty broken if used properly. There hasn't been a guide on corruptions. There probably will be one soon enough, but I feel like I know enough to know that that will be very broken soon enough. And if you want me to give you a tip, roll a good one on Padoru. Get a really good Padoru, spin on it. Hopefully you get the third one because that basically decreases the seconds of it. If you get a 5-second Padoru, that is broken. Y'all don't like the amount of money you would get from a 5-second Padoru on your farm would go stupid. So that's like the only main meta corruption I would give on like a familiar that I know of, at least. Padoru with a good corruption will go crazy. But yeah, that's about it for like the main things. There's obviously a lot of other little things that I won't really dive into because if you want to know all that, just go read the update log, honestly. Now, the second final thing I want to talk about is the amount of time we had to wait for the update compared to the amount of content that we got inside of the update. So this update took 1 week longer than usual for the new dev team. They usually take about 2 to 3 weeks per update, but this one took 4 weeks or a month. So it did take a week longer, and we did get a good amount of content, but I feel like you could complete this update in 6 hours. Like realistically, you can honestly complete this update in 6 hours. What I feel like completing the update means like doing all the story mode and legend stages, getting most of the units at least, and feeling like there isn't much for you to do besides just slowly grinding the game per day. I feel like there wasn't that much for the point that we had to wait a week more for that. Maybe there's there's just some things that I don't realize in this update that I feel like might have taken more time. Like I know Odyssey definitely took a shitload of time. The amount of depth and uniqueness, I don't even know if that's a word, in Odyssey definitely makes it show that it was definitely thought very well, and I wouldn't be surprised if that's the reason it did take an extra week. But I don't know, I just feel like there wasn't a lot of content in this update compared to the amount of time that it took for the update in general, right? Like the Bleach update, we got rifts, a new story, a new legend stages, a new portal, a lot of units, a lot of new ways of just getting rerolls and essence stones. There's just a lot of things to do in the update, in my opinion. So yeah, that's just my personal opinion of that. I feel like it definitely could have been more, but maybe there's some things that I don't know that are happening behind the scenes that might have taken this update that made it take a little longer than I feel like it could have been. But yeah, that's all I'm gonna say about that. My overall thoughts on this update, again, I've said it's an 8 out of 10 in my opinion. A lot of sick things. Again, the challenge is really fire. I really love the challenge additions and changes to the update. Really nice. And overall, I like this update a lot, and I can't wait to see what they have in store. I don't feel like this is their best update they've ever made, but yeah, that's again personal preference. If y'all have any comments on this update or any comments about my opinions on this update, again, let me know down in the comments. And yeah, that's about it. Hope y'all have a great day or night wherever you are, and I'm gonna see you on the next one. Peace.